Hey, I'm Casey Okupi with Free Speech Northwest, and today we're talking about Congressional District 5 here in Salem, Oregon. And Joey, he's got a lot of different thoughts about Congressional District 5. It's hard to say that. CD5.
CD5.
CD5. CD, yeah. So anyway, let's all introduce ourselves from my left to right. Go ahead.
I'm Joey Nations, and I'm running against Kurt Schrader for Congressional District 5.
Okay. And there's me, of course. You know me, Casey Okupi. And go ahead.
I'm the wife.
The wife. There's the wife. Okay, so we just recently did an election, and we got good old Kurt Schrader back. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Well, you know, before we get into it, why don't you give us some statements, because there was some stuff that you wanted to say.
Sure, absolutely. I just thought I'd really offer a little bit of information to the two of you and also to your audience about, who I am and why this election matters and why I would be a good fit for the position that Kurt Schrader currently holds. So the biggest thing to me is that people are really striving for real representation, and that's what I plan to bring to the table. As the common sense candidate, I'm going to actually be in touch with the voters in this district, and that's really what we've been missing. One of the biggest issues that we never touch on in this district is immigration. And our current representative has completely left the people in this district behind on representation on the immigration issue. He voted no on Kate's Law. He voted no on the No Sanctuary for Criminals Act. He also voted against funding for the wall and called it a stupid idea for our people to be safe in our own neighborhoods. So the biggest issues to me that I'm going to be focused on is bringing that real voice, that real representation back in the realm of immigration, the economy, and putting America first, and putting American jobs first, and government corruption. And so those three topics are near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to stay focused on the immigration one in particular with Kurt Schrader, because it's common sense that we want safety in our communities. We have to know who's coming in, who's not, and he is in favor of illegal immigration, and that's one of the biggest places where I would disagree with him on. And given my background, working with lobbying firms, working with the government, the good name recognition I got running this last go-around, I feel very good about my chances and the plan that I have to beat Kurt Schrader in 2020. And immigration will be one of those key issues where he has left the people behind on that. So I'm very excited for 2020. We have to start the fight now if this revolution is going to happen. So thank you very much for the time. I'm happy to be here and answer any questions.
Great. All right. I've got a couple questions.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's get to them.
We have a few questions. Let me see. So you've covered, your opening statement, like why you're running. So in Oregon, you're talking about immigration and stuff, supporting immigration, but what needs do we have here in Oregon?
In our state, so the reason I talk about immigration is because that actually touches the whole country and it touches our state. So if you look at the economy in Oregon, we have a very agrarian economy, and we have a lot of farms here. So there is a lot of pull for illegal immigration to our state. And being a sanctuary state that we are, we unfortunately have folks who are drawn here for multiple reasons, especially those who want to avoid law enforcement. And so because of that, we have had rapes, robberies, death in Oregon, all based off of illegal immigrants who have come here. And so I think that immigration is actually a very Oregon-centric issue, because we're not safe in our own communities if we have illegal alien criminals who are running around the state of Oregon. And because of lack of enforcement to the south of us, it comes here just as much as it does to California. And so I think that is a very central issue to us in this state. There's other Oregon-centric issues I think that you can tie away from immigration, but I would argue that immigration is very much a Oregon-related topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So do we know anybody else who's trying to run for CD5 in 2 years? Like, this is really early, wouldn't you agree? Is this the right time?
It is the right time. There's no time like now, and I'll tell you why. So when we look at the ability of previous Republican candidates to unseat Kurt Schrader, there's a very common theme that they typically have not started very early, and they typically do not have a lot of funding. Now, the biggest thing that I can do right now is to start now, because the fight's now for 2020. And it's now because of Kurt's war chest. He's sitting on several $1 million that he's got from all of his special interest friends. And because of that, he's got a distinct advantage late in the game. But early in the game, the grassroots and support that I have and volunteers and plan, we're all going to move into the final stages of the election with a well-oiled machine already in place. And so I'm going to have a team of volunteers out knocking doors, out spreading the word about Joey Nations before Kurt Schrader's even thinking about his reelection. Now, because I'm already out there doing it, maybe he'll start a little bit earlier this year. But I've got a lot of steam built up from the last election cycle that I'm going to capitalize on, and a lot of excitement and a lot of supporters. And so we're going to make sure we start now so people understand that the fight has already begun if we want to take our state back.
How early did you start with when you were running last time?
4 months before the
4
election
months,
cycle.
that's what I
Correct.
thought. And
So now
people like
I'm
Mark-
looking at,
No,
16
go
months now.
All right.
That's how much time we have.
And so when Mark Callahan won that, how long had he been campaigning, and how many times do you know that he had ran before that?
So Mark Callahan, prior to that race, had run for office at least 5 or 6 times, and just in Oregon 3 or 4 times. And he also started that campaign 4 months before me. And so September, I believe, is when he officially filed, but he announced the summer prior. So he was almost 8 months before I started, he began.
And last time was your first time trying at this?
It was my first time running for office,
Awesome.
correct. So I worked in a lobbying firm, ran state campaigns, ran competitive Senate campaigns, but I've never run myself until this last year.
So you're kind of like a fresh face, all brand new here, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I like to think I have a fresh face. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I agree. Now, you're going to beat Kurt next time and anyone else that you go up against. What sort of separates you from some other Republican candidates potentially?
I think some of the degrees of separation that you'll see with me is that I've already got a very united, strong base of support who want to help me. They want to go knock doors. They want to be involved with this campaign. And it's folks who I know from my personal life, but also folks who have been involved with the campaign last time, and a lot of new voters that I brought in to the folds of the Republican Party. Because as the Republican candidate who was America First on my last run as far as policy goes, I am also the only candidate right now who has strongly said I will support America First policies now and when I'm in office. And I will absolutely hold myself accountable to the people of this district and be more available to them than any previous candidate they've ever had. As a Republican, I uniquely bring a couple of things to the table. I worked in a lobbying firm all the way out to the DC level. So I was based in Salt Lake City, Utah when I was going to college at the University of Utah. But I worked all the way out to DC. I worked with the Democrats. I know how their operation works. I know their messaging. And so as a Republican, I know what our enemy is up to. I know what we need to communicate and speak to the voters to get them excited about the issues. Because it's not even about partisan at this point, it's common sense. We're on the side of common sense on, a wide variety, a plethora of issues. We have to communicate that out. And so not only will I have the background to do that, but I've got the no fear that is missing in Oregon Republican politics. And so we've got a party that is completely petrified of the Democrat establishment. They're petrified of the progressives, and they don't scare me. And so I will stand on my 2 feet and talk and debate with anybody, anywhere, and we are on the right side of history, so we're gonna win.
What you say American First, what are just like maybe your 3 ideas of what you consider that concept?
So the 3 big issues that I like to focus on is immigration, economy, and government corruption. You can inject America First into all of those things. So America First policies on immigration we haven't touched the Immigration Act very much at all since 1965. So we need to look at doing some merit-based, America First policies that are going to benefit our economy and benefit the people who are already living and working here. And so we don't want to just bring in anybody. We want to have a merit-based process for people who are going to benefit our economy. So immigration, there's legislative change we need, and then enforcement. So that's the other America First policy there, is enforcing the law so that Americans have the ability to go about their day and live their lives freely. On the economy, on America First, you go back to 2007, I was working on an anti-NAFTA bill in the Utah State Legislature back in 2007. And so I've been on the right side of these bad trade deals for over a decade, while we've had Republican establishment, Democrat establishment holding up NAFTA as the best thing out there. I was actually working against it all the way back in 2007. And so I'll put America first on these trade deals and on any type of economic deal that Congress is involved with putting together, because we haven't had anyone put our country first. It's always been about free trade. Well, it's not fair, as President Trump has always said. Free trade has to be fair for it to actually be free, right? And so the other thing I would say about, government corruption and how you put America first with that, I can't be bought. And because I cannot be bought, the people in my district can rest assured at night that I will have their back no matter what the media says about me, no matter what the establishment says about me, or what any of my enemies say about me. I will always have their back and stand with them. And part of that is not being bought by the same powers that have controlled Congressional District, CD5, for the past 10 years at least. Kurt Schrader has been completely bought and sold by the establishment, moneyed interests that control his campaign, especially the energy industry. That man sits on the Energy and Commerce Committee, is married to an ex-energy lobbyist who is an executive at a top energy company currently, and he has done about 700 trades of energy stock while sitting on the Energy Committee.
When you say energy, what does that pertain? Because, we have all kinds of stuff. So when you're saying that, let's just it sounds like a simple question, but let's
Sure.
let people also, are we doing like solar, are we doing oil, or are we doing gas?
So
what is he working on there?
So the Energy Committee, when I talk about 700 trades, what I mean is that while he sits on the committee of the United States that controls funding for energy companies that are involved with the federal government and receiving funding from the federal government, so he's got insider information on these energy companies and what they're receiving, and then making stock trades at the same time so that he benefits financially from that information. And so as far as energy goes and my policies on it, I would go right there with America First energy policy that President Trump's been promoting. And so we see now America's a top exporter of a variety of things, liquid natural gas being one of those that we never have been before. So I personally am all for opening up the markets to allow the American worker and American businessman to make this country run like it's supposed to and see real growth. And so on energy, I would be for opening up the markets as much as we can for individuals to achieve the energy goals that America needs. And I would make sure that we include American steel, pipe, and tools and jobs on any infrastructure jobs, energy-related jobs, any federal dollar that's going out there should be attached to American jobs, American steel, American employees and products, period.
All right.
That's great.
Yeah,
Like it.
it's a lot of info, right?
Well,
Well, that's what we need, though, okay?
yeah, you're being very
So-
logical and intelligent, and I don't think we need that right now.
I think you're being sarcastic, Casey.
Yeah.
That's true. Busted.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay, so that's a bunch of intelligent, as I said, like stuff that's not emotional high school nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, the issues, the facts, all that. Let me see. So you don't have time for that stuff.
Personally, I'm very focused on campaigning against corrupt Kurt. That's where my focus is. I want to engage the grassroots, engage voters, and because of my America First policies and my very strong conservative stances, there are some people in the establishment or out there in the world who would like to not see people like me run for office.
Why? Is there an Oregon swamp? Is that a thing?
There is an Oregon swamp. And, you know, really what it's about, though, is they want to stop America First candidates and they want to stop America First policies and the people that support those. And so when I go out and speak, I get people excited about the issues. When I go out and speak, they get excited about winning. And so there are people who don't want my voice heard. They don't want people like me to run, because that means that power goes back to the people and it doesn't go back to their offices where they want it.
Okay. So that's how you would potentially define like the Oregon swamp. Like a group of people who, you know, aren't focused on like the issues necessarily, but why wouldn't they be? What's going on?
Well, I think that what you have there is a power complex, Casey. So the people who have, you know, run politics on both sides of the aisle here have gotten very used to the way that things are run in Oregon. It's a complete status quo out here no matter which way you look. And because of that, they have been able to keep this ever-shrinking pie to themselves. They don't let any newcomers, any new people, you know, flashy candidates, new grassroots movements, they don't want them involved, because that takes away from their influence, takes away from their authority and their ability to dictate how things are run out here.
But at the same time, are they compromising with, you know, these positions and these stances? Would you agree with that? Like they're, you know, this Oregon swamp has a lot of potential compromise in order to stay in their position?
Absolutely. So a lot of what they do to stay in their position is, you know, kind of wiggle in between these points of, are you progressive, are you conservative? They want to just stay there. And so if
so
that,
you're a threat or something.
I would consider myself a threat to the status quo out here.
The status quo.
Yeah, and the real reason being that I will speak my mind and I will tell the truth. And so because I will tell
Can I sway you on that?
Yeah, you can sweat me on it.
No, can I sway you on the
Sway
truth?
me on the truth?
Yeah.
On what the truth is?
Yeah.
No, you can't.
So you'd probably get mad, huh? You'd
Well,
be
I sort of like the sweating part of it, though. Let's put him to
Maybe
pressure.
sweat you on the truth.
I mean,
What does that mean? Heatland?
we're kind of running around in circles. There is a reason we were here too. So I mean, I don't want to ask one question. You went back and somebody would said that we are working against the enemy. Who do you feel the enemy is? Like when you're saying that and you're speaking about when you're in Washington at work, who's the enemy?
I would say that you have a dual set of enemies there. So DC has a whole nother swamp to it, okay? But the DC swamp is stuck in DC. They're ingratiated out there with the lobbying firms and the folks who keep them in power. The Oregon swamp is a more local group, and they tend to be more influential on local elections. They try to be influential on federal elections because there's a lot of money in it. But what I would define the swamp as is anyone who has stayed since before the Trump era, has stayed in power throughout the last several cycles and has not changed anything. And so because they are not willing to change anything, they purposefully do not engage a huge portion of the population. And you know, the Oregon swamp in particular, the type of people who would like to hold me back, you've got state representatives, you've got county chairs, you've got all sorts of people who would like to say that they can influence an election like mine, but they can't. Their opinions are just opinions. And so for someone to, you know, want to inject themselves into this race or that race, they're playing by the old rules.
And we're not just because you talk a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's just be honest. Is this, you know, when we're just speaking here, this isn't just like a Democrat liberal issue, is it? If we really want to start talking open about some of this stuff, this corruption and this talking behind scenes and things on that lines, it's far from something that we're dealing with as an opposing team.
No,
it's on our own team, isn't it?
Oh, it's both sides.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I mean about the establishment of both parties does this. And so when you look at, you know, people who have wanted to tear down my campaign in particular, like let's get a little specific about my campaign. The last election cycle, you had people who were purposefully trying to trip up my campaign to help another person's campaign in the hope that they would be able to control that individual through the November election cycle. So because I cannot be bought and I cannot be controlled, I am a threat to the party establishment. And I am a threat to the status quo out here in Oregon. And that started last election cycle, and it's going to continue through this. And that's simply because they don't want the people to be engaged on this issue of actual, conservatives can win, we can have real representation. And so they do things like backstab me on Facebook, or, they create fake grassroots groups to copy other individuals. There's a great group called Oregon Women for Trump that helps me out. And some of these individuals in the Republican establishment actually went out and purchased a fake business license and completely slandered this group of grassroots people simply because they're not involved in the grassroots. They're not involved in this movement that's happening in Oregon to take our state back because we're tired of the status quo. So you've got total swamp establishment trying to stop me, Kimberly.
It's weird. It's like if you were in middle school or high school, but you didn't grow out of that mentality. Strange. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Aside from that, that's interesting. People submitted a question, and it's along the lines of what we were kind of talking about, and I said I'd read it here. Let me see.
Is there any way I can give some background on why we're even sitting here? Is that a big no?
Sure, I don't like to name names because
we won't name
I respect
names.
Anonymity.
All you have to do is get online and see who's blocking Joey. So I'd like everyone to, one thing I'd like to state on here is that we get told a lot, we're big Joey supporters. There's a reason that we do support Joey, and one of those things is he shows up. It's a big deal. So we had a lot of messages.
He does show up.
And that's a big deal. It isn't like that there itself. I mean,
showed up.
That's enough right there. And I know that we're not like this big show or anything along the lines, but there's been a lot of stuff being said about you online. People that were your friends, right? Mm-hmm. And we've lived this. We ran a convention once here in town, and it's amazing how people will change. And it's a telltale sign of success. It really is. And so it's like a filter. Even in the Bible says they will hate you because of my name and things along that lines. And so when you start having something that's successful, you get to have a lovely filter into your life. And so one of the reasons we're here is because people are turning into high school and kind of bashing you online. Is that not true?
Yeah, no, it's totally true, and what I try to do and try to stay focused on is victory, and so I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and talk about it a little bit, because they would love the focus to be, oh, look, we're hindering him or we're slowing him down, but really what it's about is it's a jealousy issue. They're very jealous, and they're very jealous that our campaign is exciting. They're very jealous that we are engaging with the grassroots and getting people excited and showing up to shows like this early and talking about the issues. And so I think that this establishment problem that we have in Oregon, we have a good opportunity to actually show the people out here that it's not just status quo. We have an exciting opportunity to put our state first, to put our country first, so we can do it all together.
Well, I mean, every single individual that was stating to you, we're messaging my husband online, we offered them to be here. I mean, beyond the fact that, why do you feel, let's just get some, why do you feel they didn't show up today?
Me? Why? I feel they didn't show up because they know that I am strong on my stances, I'm willing to discuss the issues and debate things like an adult. And so because I'm able to solve conflict and to actually discuss the issues candidly, they struggle with that. And so I think it's a fear and jealousy issue that they have with not even being willing to show up to discuss it.
Do you feel potentially that the fact that they're bashing you online, unfriending you, starting groups, and I know we've been through all this already, messaging us privately and refusing to show up, could that be a symptom of someone being in what we would consider the swamp?
Yeah, I think that, yes, it does, because when you look at somebody who is a member of the swamp out here, they tend to not be the biggest fan of Joey Nations. And there's even a little crew out there called Never Nations. And a sure bet, if you're a Never Nations, you're a Never Trump. And you heard that from Joey Nations.
Well, it flows pretty nice, though. I don't want to be anti-you, but that flowed pretty nice, actually. So
I should have worn one just for the fun of it.
yeah, it's fun. But, you know, one thing is it isn't quite equivalent, but we do have some issues when it comes to Democrats and stuff and private emails and messaging behind the scenes. And in the future, would you have any problem if you were messaging people that being public? Do you feel like you live a clean enough life that they started digging into some of the stuff that you have? Because one of the reasons that you were kind of attacked last time was, what was one of the biggest issues? You ended up having some sort of fine trying to put against you, correct? What was that?
So they filed a false Federal Election Commission complaint against me. So the person who shall not be named filed a FEC complaint against me saying that I was not following all the rules that the FEC puts out for candidates, when in fact I was. And so I turned in all the documentation and was cleared of any wrongdoing at all.
And what were those rules you supposedly were doing but did not, and you're able to prove that you did not do this?
Right, so they were stating that I was not properly advertising my campaign on signage and on cards.
Oh,
and
no.
So
correct.
what does that mean by improper?
It didn't say authorized and paid for by Joey Nations for Congress
So
on
you're
it.
trying to say, and when we go through everybody, and I'm doing this on purpose, that as much as they tried to find dirt on you, they dug so far that they found out you forgot to put your name on your paper.
Pretty much, teacher.
Is that what we're trying to find out here? I mean, let's just. I joke about that, but I do bring it up that pathetically. The fact is that they did dig on you. They did try.
Well,
and that's as good as they got.
Yes, and in fact, I'll tell you that because we're on the topic of the FEC and we can leave it at this, right after I was cleared by the FEC, the Statesman Journal wrote an article saying Joey Nations, who we reported on having a violation last time, has now been cleared by the FEC with no violations. They wrote an article on it, and the next day, we had someone from the swamp, who will not be named, try to make an illegal donation to my campaign via corporation. Corporations cannot donate to federal candidates. This person, who is involved with federal races in Congressional District 5, the chair of Congressional District 5, who I will not name, but this individual, through their company, which is completely illegal, made a donation to my campaign, which I caught and refunded, thanks to my beautiful treasurer, Charlotte Nations. And we caught that.
A little biased there.
Yeah. Well, we caught it and we refunded it right back to them and explained to them that this was illegal and that they would be reported to the FEC. So the swamp is shallow, but they are deep enough in their thought process. There's not very many of them in Oregon, but they're deep enough in their thought process to try to send me an illegal donation that I had. If I had not caught it, they would have reported that and gotten me in actually deep trouble. But because I caught it and rejected it, they can't do anything. But these people who did it, they know much better than that. That is a swamp trick book. I mean, talk about from the book, page, chapter 101, whatever. You are talking about the same thing they did the last election cycle, trying it again this election cycle.
So this is repeated offense.
Correct. And we're never going to fall for it. The swamp has no chance.
Interesting.
I promised that I would read these submissions.
Well, I wanted to make sure that we brought some of this up so there was context to why we are actually doing this, because it is very much, well, one of the contexts also is that you were on our show before at a time when other individuals did show up to debate when you guys were running.
It's Rob and Mark. They showed
Rob
up.
and Mark.
It was yeah.
And so we have some backtrack. So if you guys want to go back and watch that sort of video, we're not going to do any experts. I mean, maybe you might take some cuts and things along that lines. But it is up, and it is able to be found. I even watched it this week. And
it was lovely.
It was
a good time. I had fun there. It was fun.
All right, so I'm going to read these two questions here. Let me see. Somebody sent to me via Messenger. I said, how do you want me to wear this? And they didn't get specific. They said, as long as you point out directly and specifically that he lied to you, your wife, Mark, Rob, your audience, and there's provable evidence that he lied, that should suffice without sugarcoating it or discrediting or attempting to minimize the fact that he lied to all of us. And then in addition to that, it's connected to that. It says in March 2018, panel discussion held by your station with the 3 CD5 candidates. You, Joey, commented that you'd support the nominee. After the primary, in which you were not the successful candidate, you took every opportunity to disparage the nominee and went so far as to call him to step down so you could step in. Should you not be the nominee in this next election, how is your behavior going to be different, and do you pledge to not only endorse the candidate but to actively campaign for them?
And this
So
person
that
was
was-
invited onto our panel.
Yeah, a lot of people said they had stuff.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Right.
I don't know.
That's what cowards say.
So-
This individual who asked the question, I am more than happy to entertain it.
I
So,
think his name was Schmeggery.
Schmeggery. Okay, Schmeggery. Yes, the last election cycle saw some unfortunate things unfold after the election actually happened. Now, I'm not going to take the blame or do any apologizing, and the reason I won't is because the whole reason I requested that this individual, Mark Callahan, drop out from the race was because, in fact, his entire campaign team dropped him as a bad candidate and publicly said they would not help him anymore. He was such a bad candidate, and they were actively seeking alternatives. And so I put myself out there as the person who got second legitimately and said, Mark, if you'll drop out, I would be more than happy to step in and run, because obviously there are big warning signs here. So his staff dropping him is what actually preempted me offering to jump in to the race. And so in theory, yes, I would support the Republican candidate and support that candidate as long as they are an America First candidate that supports our country and putting America first on the policies.
Okay, so isn't there circumstances, honestly, in which you go, whoa, can't support that dude or that lady?
I just
You know
said
what I
it.
mean? Like-
Yeah, no, I just said it. You know, if they
So
if
if
they
they're-
came out and they were taking positions on policies that I personally could not support. Let's say they were saying, "Hey, I'm a Republican, but I want open borders." I couldn't support that person.
Okay.
And
so
so-
there are instances where it's like, yeah, I'll back them up, and then so and so happens, they all of a sudden express this view that's against your views. Then how can you keep backing them? You know what I mean?
I think at a
It's
certain
logical, right? It's common sense.
It is common sense, Casey. It is common sense. You know, you have to be with your principles and with your background, and so I'll never sacrifice who I am as a person.
Is it standard though for when you're saying like when someone wins that the other ones are supposed to campaign and support? Isn't that a standard thing for someone to do though? Isn't that what we usually on average would have happened? We see that underneath Trump and things on that lines. On average, isn't that what someone would standardly go do? though?
That would be what I would call the typical expectation and the typical standard. And so the only reason that I ever deviated from that standard last time is because of what happened with that candidate. Now, you have instances with President Trump where he had people who never supported him after he won, who said that they would. But I would like to think that on the issues, I would always support a candidate who's going to support the America First issues and the America First policies. Now, if that person has some kind of lingering background that's so bad that their entire campaign team has dropped them like a hot rock, I'll still offer myself as the alternative if I get second. I would offer myself as an alternative because that's just the smart thing to do when we have a race to win.
So does support require unconditional agreement then?
No, I don't think so. Unconditional agreement? No.
Because that's kind of what it is. Some of the messages that were sent is like he did not support it, he did not campaign, and this is what's standardly done. So you're saying no.
I think I don't think that it's meant to be that way when you especially have candidates who are breaking party platform. Like with our most recent governor candidate, there was a lot of flack about people not supporting Newt Bueller for governor if you were a Republican. but there were a lot of issues that he took a stance on that folks felt like they couldn't vote with.
It wasn't a Republican stance.
Correct. And so that's where I think that typically, yes, the standard, the tradition, whatever you want to call it, is to back that candidate. I think we're getting to a point in our country where we have to open our eyes a little bit about what that means, because in the past, the swamp always controlled who that candidate was. And so, yes, they want everyone to line up for their candidate every single time, no matter what.
On both sides, no matter who's
On
running.
both sides.
Yeah.
But in Oregon, uniquely, the party out here, the Republican Party, they have put up, weaker and more progressive candidates again and again and again. And so I think that we are at a time right now in this state where the people have to rise up and show what we're passionate about and do it.
So
Time to get hardcore.
Let's do it.
Well, so let me just do this, because I like point blank, simple questions. Can it be moral to refuse the support of a candidate that you first agreed to support then? Can it be moral?
Can it be moral to
Yeah, is it moral?
Yes.
All right.
So your love is not unconditional.
Mm.
Oh, no.
Yep.
All right. Well, okay. Is that it? I mean, we've gone past time.
Well, you shouldn't set time.
Shouldn't set time?
No.
Well, I don't know.
I mean-
You got anything else you want to say?
I mean, I always have stuff to say. So if you just want to
Talk,
give me
talk, talk.
time, I'll
Go
do
for
it.
it. Yeah, I mean,
Well, before you ramble, half kidding. Are there any questions in the audience at all, or no?
one more thing I had to
No.
say.
Do all the audience members support Joey?
We can't
seeing
see
lots
head
of
nods.
nods.
100% of the audience is
Give a
in support.
hoot.
All right, so 100% of the audience seems to be in support of you. And now, did you have any final closing statements or something?
Yes. I would just say to the audience and to you too, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. The other thing I would say is that this literally is our chance to save our state. And I believe that with a passion. I have 2 young kids and a wife. That's my first priority, is take care of my family. But I look at my Oregon family as a pretty big extended group of people. And so because of my passion for my children and the brighter future that I want for them, that's why I'm running for office, to represent all of you. Because the people have been completely ignored by the establishment. The Republican establishment, the Democrat establishment, they've all ignored us. And so I am going to bring actual common sense and actual contact with the community back into politics.
And hardcore.
Hardcore, we're gonna do it. And I really do believe that if we look at the issues, immigration, the economy, government corruption, and putting America first in all of those instances, that is what the people want. Those are the common sense issues that are gonna talk to people, safety in their communities, their wallets, their ability to raise their families. And those things are ignored by the establishment. And so that's why I'm gonna fight for it. That's why I piss them off and why I buck their system. And so I don't expect to make less of an enemy of the swamp. In fact, it might even grow. But that's a good thing, because I'm speaking for the people and I'm speaking for the folks who don't have a voice out there. So bring it. I'm ready.
That's right. Not going to pull any punches. Okay, well, this was Free Speech Northwest about Congressional District 5. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Yay.